Hello everyone, my name is Rodrigo Ribeiro and I represent our abstract that's called Risk Knowledge and Social Perception of Natural Hazards of Coffee Farms in Brazil. I'm very pleased to be here presenting in this virtual mode. So I would like to inform that I made this study, this article, together with Professor Magda, that is the second author. So I started the presentation. Regarding the topic of natural climate disasters around the world, we see a tendency of increased occurrence around the world. Here in the chat, we see in the blue line the occurrence of floods, in this dark blue, the storms, in the yellow, the droughts, and in the green line, extreme temperatures. When we take a look in this number for Brazil, where this study is made from, we also see a tendency of natural disasters. In Brazil, we have a lot of natural disasters related to floods and extreme strong rains. So, as this article is related to climate disasters and rural areas, I would like to present here some few words about agriculture. We are expected to produce more food by 2050 as the population is expected to increase. The second point is that the production increase needed to occur even as the impacts of climate change are becoming more evident in crops. Another point that is important to mention is that agriculture contributes to around 19–29% of the global anthropogenic greenhouse gas emission. And another aspect is that agriculture plays a very important role in the economic in developed countries as Brazil, as 28% of the population is employed by agriculture. Now the other slide. And how this is related to rural areas and climate risks. And agriculture would be more severely impacted by the global warming and extreme weather events such as droughts that are expected to become more frequent. The other, high temperatures could result in a decrease of crop yields, and as a result of the irrigation that could increase, would be further depleted aquifers that has already been overused. So when we think about agriculture, we should remember that we are passing from the agriculture from the 50s, that as we see in this image here, less technology with the family working for the agriculture that's called agriculture 4.0, that is based on the technology and information. This is because the agriculture wanted to increase the production and make lower the risks. So I mention this because this abstract that they're presenting is related to risk knowledge in rural areas. So before I pass it to the specific points of the article, I would like to mention or make a reflection. What's rural areas? What is it we are talking about? Each country have a different methodology to evaluate what's rural, what's urban. And even though when a city is based on a big portion of the rural economy, we should remember that the rest is very dependent of the rural economy. So this is very, very interesting point. So the methodology of this abstract that was presented, it was based in 4 steps. The first, it was make a literature review, and it was studied the subject of climate impacts in rural areas. Then we made a case study based in Brazil. I will present more detail after. And then we made some surveys in 2 different years, and then we made the analysis of the results. The objective of this study was to investigate the risk knowledge and the social perception with small coffee farms, with a case study in Caconde region in Brazil. So I divided in four parts this presentation. The first is the risk knowledge and risk perception, then the study area, after the survey, how it was made, and finally the conclusions. So regarding the risk knowledge and risk perception, so we have this chart presents that when you have a disaster or extreme event, we have a change of the line of what was the trend of the quality over the time, and this difference you can see, you can make an analysis of the perception before, during the event, after, or before. So risk perception is a subjective judgment that's different by cultures, it's different over time, it's different by gender also. And also it's different when we think about rural and urban. And risk knowledge in rural areas is a notion that goes through much more controversy. And if we are discussing risk perception is not clear or have a lot of difference, risk knowledge, it's even more difficult to judge this or to evaluate this. So the study area is the city of Caconde. It is here. First it is in Brazil here, in the state of São Paulo, and here on the border of São Paulo and Minas Gerais. So Caconde has an economy strongly dependent on the production of coffee, and that change here, and a total of 2,000 rural properties, 1,200 are devoted to coffee growing. And between 19 and 14, the last years, the coffee production occupied 90% of the agriculture land of the municipality. So it's the main crop type in this region. Actually, Caconde it was the second, it depends on the year, but it is on the second position of the main municipalities that produces coffee. It's a population in 2015 of 80,000 people, and 32% of them living in rural areas, according to the criteria from Brazil. So here we see the meteorological data from Caconde that we see on the bars the precipitation and in the lines the temperature. We see that between May and September we have a dry season when it is usually making the crop, the people are picking the coffee from the plants. And when also we have the winter time when you have low temperatures. So we see these three different years, 2015, 16, and 17, and also in black color since 11. This data was from the meteorological station in Caconde. Here is a picture that was taken in Caconde. So we see these farms, the houses, and the coffee plantations here. Caconde has suffered in 2014 a very strong drought that actually was occurring in the whole state of São Paulo. If someone searched the crisis, the water crisis in São Paulo in 2014, we also find a lot of pictures about. But this is a very strong image because here, as I'm passing here, it is the road, and usually the water, it is here. So we see how the water came down here. So how the survey was made. So the survey was made in 2 different years, 2016 and 2017. The survey was made with the support from the Agricultural Association of Barra Grande de Caconde, where they helped us to apply the surveys directly with the farms. And the survey was with closed questions. The survey had this aspect, just one page. The first section to general information, age, gender, and how long time they're living there. Then the second part was the production aspects. And then the last part was for the extreme events. So the idea for making the survey in the 2 years was to compare or see how the perception was changed and also to evaluate the risk knowledge in this population. And here I would like to say that was with the support with the Samia, that is the author of another study that was already published regarding the weather influence. So here we see how the perception of the main environmental problems worry the respondents. And we see that here in 2016 and 17, the drought was the most marked event. Regarding the risk knowledge, most of the proprietors received technical advice, but half of the percentage indicated that they did not consult the planting dates for the coffee indicated by the agriculture climate risk zone. And this agriculture climate risk zone is a very important tool that is made by the Ministry of Agriculture from Brazil that indicates the appropriate planting period for taking account in 30 years. And this have a big implication for integrating policy and risk management in agriculture. So here in this blue, it is just an example of how it is the webpage of the Minister of Agriculture, where you can see or visual, or you can see this risk of each area. So this ZARC, Agriculture Climate Risk Zone, is associated for different rates of risk losses for 20%, 30, and 40. So the conclusions. The drought was indicated as the greatest harvest hazard for the most farmers, which was consistent with the FAO studies indicating that for developing countries, 83% of the damage are caused by the drought are absorbed by the agriculture. Also, the rural residences are unaware of the early warning systems that are available for civil defense and agriculture climate zoning. And risk perception is understood what people perceive, what science can actually measure. And the study of social perception makes possible to verify that all through the Brazilian Atlas of Natural Disasters indicates the floods of the occurring in Brazil, they almost did not appear during the survey. During that literature review, we consulted this atlas that have this list of disasters that occurred in each city of Brazil. And for the case of the Caconde, they were indicating one case of flood that was not matching with the perception. So here with this last slide, I would like to put in this image of the coffee drawing. I would like to say that improving the risk knowledge of the natural hazards in rural areas will be a key task for society being balanced in the nature with the new future. And with this, I would like to finish my presentation. We will drink my coffee. And if someone will have some questions, would like to know more about, my contact is available in the abstract, and I will please to answer some questions. Thank you very much.